Okay, it's the Gemini moon, so I'm gonna keep rolling with this information. We are talking about houses right now. So I promised y'all I would get better at houses. So here we go. Let's talk about what houses are really quick. Houses are not like planets, but have the same characteristics. They go in the same order as the planets do. However, houses are based on the actual moon and the time you were born, and as well as your ascendant, as well as the nodes. They're all tied in together. Houses have to deal more with your life situations, whereas planets have to deal with your characteristics of life. And the signs. The signs have to do with the characteristics of life. The planets have to deal with those characteristics as well as those life situations. So they all align with each other. Each house represents a planet and a sign. Okay, so let's begin with the first house. And there are 12, just like there are 12 signs. The first house, like the first sign, the first house rules Aries. And Aries planet is Mars. So the first house has to do with Aries as well as Mars. The first house has to do with your personal issues. In my transit episode that I just did tonight, talked about the first house because I have a first house stellium. What is a stellium? Stellium has to deal with when you have 3 or 4 more planets or houses in the same sign, okay? All my first house stelliums are, I have 3 stelliums. Sorry, I have 3 first house stelliums. I also have 2 sets of 3 planet stelliums. So I have Scorpio stelliums, my Scorpio sun, my Scorpio in Uranus, as well as my Scorpio in Venus. And I have 3 Libra stelliums in planets or placements. I have the Libra ascendant, I have Pluto in Libra, and I have my North Node in Libra as well. Lots of work, I'm trying to tell you. Then the first house is the opposition sign of Libra, because the first sign is Aries, the opposition sign is Libra of Aries. So the first house is the opposition sign of the 7th house that represents Libra. Okay, so the second house, second sign is Taurus. Taurus represents Venus. So Venus represents Taurus as well as the second house. Second house has to do with values and offerings, what you have to offer and what you value, especially materialistically, especially financially. The third house is Gemini. The third house is the house of communication. It represents the third sign, Gemini. Gemini is ruled by Mercury. So the third house also rules Mercury. Third house has to do with communications and familiar places. So when you go to familiar places, you are able to communicate well with the third house as the house of communication. The fourth house is the house of domestic situations as well as emotional stability. I was saying that my Pluto in Capricorn is transiting my 4th house, or aspect in my 4th house, because my 4th house is in Capricorn and all the cardinal signs are aspecting each other. The vocabulary is hard, y'all, but I'm slowly going through this as we end this Mercury retrograde season. It is February the 20th, the first day of Pisces as well, the first full day of Pisces. Pisces began yesterday. Fifth house has to do with the house of pleasures. Fifth house has to do with fun, children or childlike things, or who your children are, or who they will be if you don't have children yet. The fifth house represents Leo. Leo represents the sun. So the sun rules the fifth house as well as Leo. The sixth house is the house of health and work. Sixth house has to do with your day-to-day responsibilities with taking care of your health and taking care of your finances. It also has to do with sometimes overdoing those things. So let me stop here at the middle ground of the houses at the sixth house. if you have a stellium, like I said, if you have three or more houses in one, more planets in one house, right? So, like my daughter has the Sun, Mercury, and Saturn all in the 12th house, and we'll discuss that. It's either, with stelliums, you either have work to do or you don't have work to do. You do well with it, okay? Knowing my daughter, who is about to be 20 in a month and a half, she has a lot of work to do overall with her 12th house and the sun in the 12th house. And we'll discuss what the 12th house is. She has a lot of work to do with, let's go back to me. I have the first house in my ascendant. So overall, the ascendant is how I present myself to the world. I have a lot of work to do with how I relate to people, okay? I also have first house in Venus. So I have to learn how to work on loving people and loving myself and beautifying myself. I'm definitely working on the beauty every day. I'm confident with the first house in these places in Venus. However, and I do know that I'm beautiful. However, I want to just work on a few things, okay? Especially the finances with having the first house in Venus. Uranus, there's a lot. I love surprises. I love to rebel, but I need to work on how I rebel. I need to work on how I present that. Okay, first house also being ruled by Aries makes me more aggressive in these areas. Okay, Scorpio shares Mars with Aries, so I got a lot of those aggressive tendencies. Scorpio is the boiling water sign, while you know, the other water signs are Cancer and Pisces. Those are, I forgot what those two waters are. Don't get me started, but let's concentrate on Scorpio. Scorpio is boiling water indeed. All right, moving on. 7th house is the house of relationships. So this is how you relate to everything, not just everyone, but everything. And being that my 7th house, 7th house is ruler of Libra, and Libra is ruled by also Venus, like Taurus. It's hard for me to relate. I'm just gonna be honest with that. This is where I wanted to go when I stopped in the 6th house. If you don't have a stellium, say you have empty houses, you have no houses with planets in them. Like I have nothing from 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th, and I believe the 11th as well on my chart. I have no planets in those houses. So either you learn how to just take on those houses and work on that, because sometimes when you have empty houses, that means that you do need work in these areas. So for instance, 4th house, definitely need work on my emotional stability as well as my domestic situation. And I'm working really hard on that domestic situation every day because I definitely care about my children. 5th house is children. We tend to get bored, and I'm working on creative ways, especially in Pisces season, to grasp my children's attention. We went to the bowling alley today without calling them. Of course, it was busy, you know, with the Rona, the Coco-19 still around. They didn't want too many people in the bowling alley. But I took the opportunity to say, okay, we're gonna go out, see what it's like, because we haven't been anywhere. We've been, I'm putting us in an unfamiliar place. Even though we've been to this bowling alley before several times, we haven't been to it in a minute, so it's unfamiliar to my kids. I had to go through do y'all remember going to this bowling alley today? I had to go through that with them. And then as they got there, they were like, okay, well, we can't get in today, but we definitely would want to come back. So I threw that 11th house in there, you know. And once we get into that unfamiliar place, the 11th house has to do with, and I'm skipping, the 11th house has to do with social groups, the house of groups, or humanitarianism as well. So the Aquarius house, right? So once I put them in that unfamiliar place, they decided, yes, we do want to be social with this group of strangers, or, you know. Then I took them to 5 and Below and let them choose out two 2 things each so that they can have that fun and pleasure piece, because not only do I have a missing 5th house, but so do my oldest 2 kids. So do all my kids, I believe. Or no, the youngest two. Because my oldest child jokes and is a big kid for life, in my opinion. All right. 8th house, the house of Scorpio and the house of Pluto. So this is a big deal for me, because 8th house is the house of desires and transformation. So as I discussed in the previous episode I just did about the transit with Pluto and Capricorn, the 8th house has to deal with everything that people are uncomfortable to talk about, as well as the 12th house. But the 8th house has to do with death, and a lot of people don't like to talk about death. 8th house has to do with sex. So a lot of people are uncomfortable with their sexuality, what they desire, what they truly want. Is it every video that my cat has to scratch at the door and my kids close it so that, you know, I like to leave the door cracked. Give me a second, though. Yes, Minty Binks, who's in and out of my door often. I have to get her in this video. She is a Leo, so she is a kitten. You know, she's not an adult. She's, so she's a Leo. She's only 6 months old. So she likes to have fun. All right, I was in the 8th house, so basically people do not like to talk about the occult, the mysteries, this deep, dark secrets. People don't like to discuss that. And if you have a missing 8th house, that means it's time to discuss it. All right, 9th house is the house of long distance travel, higher learning, and your beliefs. The house of philosophy, the house that rules Sagittarius and Jupiter. So this is the positive house. This is the house of expansion as well, and abundance. Everything that is like Sagittarius. The 10th house. The 10th house is the house of work. Sorry, it was 11/11. I had to have the 11/11 party in my household. The house of work, the 10th house, the house of career. So this has to do with your position in society, your reputation, how you are looked upon. That Saturn house ruling, that rules Capricorn as well. So the 10th house is the serious house. It's also the midheaven. Has to do with like where you are seen as important, or in a person in power. My midheaven is in the 10th house. We'll get on midheavens very soon to the MC. All right, the 11th house, as I spoke on briefly already, is the house of humanitarianism, unfamiliar places, social groups. Okay, so again, I don't have 11th house. I don't have any signs in Aquarius. My 11th house is empty, but I still need work on it because I don't like unfamiliar places. But when I do go, I tend to blend well, most of the time, generally. And Aquarius is a fixed sign as well, like me, so it's not hard to get adjusted. It's just hard to want to get adjusted, if that makes sense. Then we have the 12th house, which is the subconscious house, the house of secrets, fears, dreams, rest and sleep, illusions, delusions, all things Pisces, all things Neptune. 12th house rules Pisces and Neptune. 12th house is where you really have to dig deep to soar high. Okay, because if you dig deep to soar low, to low vibe, which is why you all, you know, I might as well be, instead of TMZ, the 12th house Pisces hater, which makes no sense to me because I used to love Pisces, but I don't know. I gotta find my own high vibe with the 12th house. I gotta find the secrets that I want to turn into dreams of spirituality. Okay, 12th house has to also do with spirituality. Those are the good parts of the 12th house. Becoming more spiritual, more elevated, more intuitive, more creative. Getting that rest and sleep that you need to create those dreams, to create those higher level possibilities. So this was the episode about houses, briefly. We will touch on them more, especially if you need your birth chart read. Definitely working with houses a lot better, especially with transits. So holla at your girl, TMZ, teaching everyone abundantly, empowering many. I'm gonna get more creative. I don't like the way I do my creativity with my face or my artwork, but I'm gonna work on that. I'm the one with the 12th house in the North Node of all places, y'all, and Pluto. I got 12th house in Pluto too. So with that 12th house in Pluto, I have to work on elevating my transformation, okay? With 12th house in the North Node in Libra, I'm already trying to balance my life, you know? I'm already trying to relate to things better. But when I have it in the 12th house, it's like, am I keeping a conscious mind about the path I'm taking? That's the North Node, your destiny, right? And then me specifically, I know that it's unbalanced. I know that there's work that in the 12th house, my North Node in the 12th house needs for me to release some people in order to meet the new people. In order to transform, even with the Pluto in the 12th house. You know, 12th house is nothing to, 12th house is serious. and where a lot of us, like my child, okay, have a lot of work in serious placements in the 12th house, serious placements like Sun, that's the overall, right? North Node, that's the way you want to go with the rest of your life, you know. Pluto, that's the changes you have to make. That's not going to make life better until you make those changes. Even with 12th house and Mercury, that's like your low vibe would be lies, and that's where my daughter does have issues with, but she's getting better at it, you know. If I get better, this is the 11th house. If individually we work on ourselves, and the collective individually works on ourselves, we can come out in these social groups collaborating better, sharing ideas better, stepping into the new world more equipped, more prepared, because it's going to happen. It's already happening. Long story short, we got work to do, okay? Recognize where you need work on. If you don't need work on it, put that to a side, but don't stop doing a good job, and keep it moving. Teaching everyone abundantly, empowering many, Zakia. Enlighten every day. Peace, y'all.
Soon decay, and the soul